In the city, closeness is strange. You can live a few feet away from someone, hear their footsteps, smell their coffee, even watch the light of their TV flicker through the wall at 2 a.m., and still not know the sound of their voice. That's what she was to me at first. A shape across the gap. A neighbor in apartment for C. Until one morning, she stepped onto her balcony, barefoot. I don't remember the exact date. Just that the air was cold, the sun was still sleepy, and I had my toothbrush in my mouth when I saw her. She wore a giant, wrinkled sweatshirt and pajama shorts. No music, no phone, no earbuds. Just a tiny silver watering can and this strange, delicate kind of reverence. She moved like the plants might get hurt if she rushed, tipping the pots, adjusting leaves, brushing dust off the petals like they were children who'd been outside too long. And when she leaned down to whisper something to a spider plant, I realized I was holding my breath. I watched from behind my blinds, pretending to check email. She never looked over. Not once. And maybe that's what made her feel different. She wasn't trying to be seen. She just was. From then on, I noticed everything. At 7:12 a.m., her window would creak open. At 7:14, she'd step out, blink toward the sky like it was an old friend, and stretch arms up, one sock missing, glasses askew. She had this, like she'd been doing it forever. Like this small morning ritual was enough to keep the world from unraveling. I started leaving my curtains open just a crack. Just enough to see her. I gave her a name in my head. The girl who didn't know I existed, but made Tuesdays feel like poems. One Friday, I overslept and spilled coffee on my desk. In the chaos, I knocked over a cactus I'd been trying to keep alive. The pot cracked, soil spilled. I left it, there half buried, and Shaman went to work. When I got home, the mess was gone. The cactus was upright, dusted clean, propped up with a popsicle stick, and next to it tabbed to the pot was a note on a yellow sticky. He's tougher than he looks, but everyone deserves a little help. No name, just the note, written in handwriting that looped like music. I stared across at her balcony, empty. But I knew. The next day, I left a response. Thank you. I think your aloe vera has a superiority complex. I didn't expect an answer, but the following morning, her basil plant had a tiny flag sticking out of it. On it, written in the same loopy hand. He's working on it. And that's how it started. No hellos, no voices, just dirt, paper, and ink. Two people, separated by two railings and 2 feet of open air, planting something invisible between them. Something that didn't have a name, but was starting to grow roots anyway. The notes became a rhythm. Not daily, not expected, but consistent, like rain that never announces itself just arrived. Sometimes, I'd wake up early and find a post-it tucked into the edge of my balcony wall, held down by a small white stone. Other times, the messages would be hidden folded behind my planter, or peeking out from the base of a wind chime I didn't hang. They never said much. I found myself responding more, not just with words, but with gestures. I repotted my cactus properly this time, and gave it a name, Howard. She left a note. Howard deserves a promotion. She painted tiny suns on her pots. I added stars on mine. We started exchanging weather reports through rain taps on the bricks. Your plants are better dancers. Mine sulk in the wind. I don't remember when I stopped wondering what she looked like. It became less about the face and more about the space between our worlds. The quiet we filled without ever speaking. But silence has sharp edges too. One evening, I came home late. My lights were off. Her balcony was glowing. She sat cross-legged on a blanket, laughing softly into her phone. I couldn't hear the words. But something had shifted. The wind chimes didn't sound the same. Then came a Thursday morning, gray and soft and cold. And on my balcony, taped to the edge of a terracotta pot, was a square of brown craft paper. It wasn't her usual yellow no little smiley face in the corner. Just 6 words, written in smaller, neater handwriting than usual. Do you ever wish we'd spoken? I just stood there that night, looking across the gap between our balconies, and whispered the word I'd never said. Hello. She wasn't there, but the basil plant swayed, just a little, and somewhere, a wind chime answered. The day she left, there was no sound, no doors slamming, no suitcases scraping across tile, only a silence that felt unfamiliar. Her balcony was empty. Not just tidy emptied. No pots. No watering can. No string lights. Even the copper wind chimes were gone, like they'd been lifted by the air that once made them sing. But what hit me hardest? The stars we painted between the bricks had been scrubbed clean. I stood there staring at that blank wall, like it had swallowed a secret. And maybe it had. At first, I thought it was temporary. Maybe she'd gone home. Maybe she was Maybe she'd be back next week, barefoot again, stretching toward the sun like nothing had changed. But days passed, then weeks, and the window stayed closed. No notes, no signs, just the memory of her voice I'd never heard. I told myself not to feel it, that this wasn't a breakup, that I couldn't lose what I never really had. But some absences don't echo. They just settle. Quietly. Deeply. One evening, late August, I found it. Tucked behind my pot of thyme berry, just enough to be missed unless you were looking, was a folded scrap of paper. The handwriting was unmistakable. But this time, it was careful. Like it had taken her longer to write. I got the job. New city. New mornings. I didn't know how to say goodbye, so I didn't. Thank you for letting me feel known, even when no one else did. I liked you too. That was it. No name, no address. Just a note that felt like a window closing in slow motion. I stood there a long time, rereading it. The stars may have faded, but her words stayed. And maybe that was enough. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up repotting the aloe she once teased me about, hung a single copper bell where her wind chimes used to ring. Redrew the moon she once painted beside mine, this time bigger, as if to take up space she left behind. And when the sun rose, I whispered the same thing I did the day I first saw her. Please look over. just once. But of course, no one did. Weeks passed. A new tenant moved into 4C. She had loud heels, louder phone calls, and plants that didn't survive the first frost. We never exchanged a word, never waved, and I never left another note. But sometimes, on the quietest mornings, just as the city starts to stir, I sit on my balcony with my coffee and feel the faintest shift in the wind. And in that moment, I swear I can hear something soft, like the whisper of paper being folded, like laughter caught in the chimes that aren't there anymore. And I smile. Not because I still miss her, but because I was lucky enough to live next to someone who reminded me that connection doesn't always need conversation, that care can exist in silence, and that some of the most beautiful goodbyes never need to be spoken at all. Good night.